Okay, welcome. So now we're going to talk about, I'm going to share with you the Vedic astrological forecast for the month of May 2019. Before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe. Hit the bell button so that you can be notified whenever I've uploaded a video or when I'm doing the live question and answers. We do sometimes do live question and answers just about astrology and astrology readings. Sometimes I will give out free astrology readings on the live Q&As. Okay, so if you are interested in an astrological reading, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. We've got a couple of my apprentices who are giving sales. I believe this month of May you can save a lot of money and you can figure out where all this is. So this is Vedic astrology. Please understand there's a difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. If you don't know what Western astrology is, when you open up the newspaper and you look for your date of birth, it has your sun sign. That is Western astrology. It is different on numerous levels. So if what a lot of people will do is they'll watch my astrology and they'll go, oh, I've got this planet in this house. And then I go, in Western or Vedic? And they go, Western. And it could be totally different. I won't get into the specifics, but the reason for that is Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac. There are Western astrologers who do the sidereal zodiac as well, but so the sidereal zodiac is the actual light of the stars that are shining on you at this very moment. When you look at normal Western astrological charts, which is the tropical zodiac, that is a mathematical calculation of the Earth relative to the Sun. 2,000 years ago, the sidereal and the tropical zodiacs were aligned, and it didn't matter which one you were looking at, you were talking about the stars that were hitting you from the sky. So now Western astrology is about 24 degrees off, which means that if you think that your sun is in this sign or your moon is in this sign in Western, it could be completely different in Vedic astrology. So if you don't know what your Vedic astrological chart is, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And so what the big thing that we have going on, not just this month, but for quite some time, is we have Ketu and Saturn together in Sagittarius. I did an entire video on that, so go back and watch that. So I won't take the time to talk about that except to say that Ketu is the planet of spiritual liberation, and it represents being taken out of the body, sometimes by force. Ketu comes in and destroys your connection to the illusion of physical reality. Saturn is very similar to Ketu in a lot of ways. Saturn is the planet of karma, the planet of restrictions. So when you have the planet of karma, which is past life stuff, which is, past life karma that you experience, by the way, you have nothing but positive past life karma, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. You may not realize the tremendous impact of positive karma that has even allowed you to become human. All of the beings in the universe, this is the focal point. They all want to get to this and become human, and we've talked about that. So the negative karma is the challenging stuff, and those are experiences that you have to go through in order to realize that being attached to this illusion is ultimately a waste of time. It's the short version of negative or bad karma. When you listen and you go, what is the reason for all of this? Why am I experiencing all this? I surrender. Tell me what I need to know. Everything changes. Then all of a sudden, Saturn is no longer the evil taskmaster. He is the person that says, listen, I'm the one that's going to tell you the truth that nobody else will tell you. And here's what you need to do to make your life better. Now, you have Ketu, who wants to take you out of this physical world. And so you put these two together, it creates a very spiritual environment, especially because they are in the sign of Sagittarius, which is the sign of the priest, the sign of the temple, the sign of deep spiritual wisdom that goes beyond words. You have Ketu, who doesn't waste his time talking about anything. He just takes you out of the world. And you have Saturn, who doesn't spend his time talking. He just says, you got to learn your lesson. This is going to be an intense focus onto deep spiritual matters, helping you to be relieved from past, I don't want to say mistakes, because when I say mistakes, people think sins, and that's not what I mean, but past misunderstandings. When you've done things that weren't in alignment with your soul, you have to realize, wow, my soul really wants not to connect with this earth, but connect to infinity. So we talked about that in the previous video. Go watch that. Let's go look at some other things so we don't need to get so deep and intense at the moment. So, all right, so that's Rahu and Ketu are going to be in the sign of Sagittarius for quite some time. Then we have Mercury transiting Aries, May 1st through the 18th. So, what is Aries? The sign of Aries is the fiery expression of Mars. It represents the soldier in battle. And this is action, just direct action. And so Aries is the light of Mars when Mars is in his fiery, expressive mode, when he's in battle mode, which again is action. He's the planet of soldiers, of policemen, of engineers, of scientists, even surgeons. They go to action. If somebody's sick and you got to cut something out, you give the surgeon a knife. He goes into action and gets rid of it. So it's about accomplishing things and action. And here you have Mercury, which is the planet of the intellect. Now, bear in mind, we mistake in modern times the mind for intellect. Lots of times when people say mind, what they really mean is intellect. Mind is something else. We'll get to that in a moment. That's the moon. Mercury is your intellect. Mercury figures things out. Mercury says, I need to distinguish between things. Mercury is critical. Mercury is a thinker, not a feeler, a thinker. Mercury says, I don't care about the touchy-feely stuff. Help me figure out how this works. Mercury is very practical. So what do we end up with here? We end up with a very practical experience because Aries is the sign of action, of warfare. Let's go out and get things done. Mercury comes in and Mercury says, yes, I want to figure it out. So it's like you've got the soldier and you've got, in this case, the general who's going to plan out the attack. Well, we've got that bridge up there and we've got this. Or you could also be with the scientist and with the engineer. They're going to figure out how to make this contraption. It's about getting things done and figuring it out. Mercury is the planet also of verbal expression and communication. So here we have you're going to feel, potentially you're going to feel a desire to communicate directly and effectively. And let's cut through the crap. How do we figure this out? How do we fix this? Right? A lot of mansplaining is going to be going on with this. So watch out, women. Your men might get really lost in their mansplaining on you. All right, so that is Mercury transiting through Aries. All right, so then we are going to have a new moon in Aries on May 4th. Okay, so what does that mean? So the moon, I said earlier that Mercury is the intellect, not the mind. The moon is the mind. The mind is something that we in modern Western society don't really understand. We try to disengage from it. The mind is the emotions. It's your intuition. It is nurturing. It is the mother. It is the ability to have the meditative mindset where you feel connected to all of life. The intellect is the opposite of that. The intellect says, no, this is about me. I want to figure out what's different between me and you. The moon says, no, we're all one essence, and I want to know what we share. I want to feel you and connect with you. So the new moon is when the moon has gone dark. This means the light of the moon is not hitting us. And so new moons can be new moons and full moons can have strong effects on people. I myself was born in a new moon, so at the time of this video, we're going into the new moon. I really feel it. I don't like know who I am. I don't know what it's hard for me to, I was in bed all day. I did a couple of videos, but I just slept all day. And that's just because that's what happens to me lots of times when I hit these new moons. So this new moon in Aries may mean that it's going to be challenging to be able to know what you're feeling at any moment. And there may be this intellectual drive to disconnect from your emotions. So at this time, be aware. Don't get too trapped in your head, and don't worry. If you are somebody who gets depressed on new moons or you get confused, this is the time not to do anything. This is why I didn't do anything today. I made a couple of videos and I just stayed in bed because new moon is just like, you know what? Just don't overthink things. Don't overdo anything. Don't worry. Don't try and figure anything out. Just enjoy, the moon going inward. The new moons are very powerful times for going inward and meditating. So it's going to be challenging because it's in the sign of Aries, which is the sign of action. So, now bear in mind everybody's chart is different, and we're not talking about specific signs here, like how Leo is going to respond to this, and because it's far too complicated. The thing about Vedic astrology, listen, when you open up the newspaper and you look at, today Taurus it is so general. It really is. It's just it's really quite worthless to try and put your sign based on. You have to know what planets are in what houses, who's aspecting what in your chart, what planetary time period are you going through, all these kinds of things. You need to understand all of that. Is that planet powerful in your chart or weak in your chart? So if you really want to understand what's happening in terms of those kinds of transits, then go up here to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get yourself a Vedic reading so that you can understand how to apply these transits in your life. Okay? All right, so that's the new moon on May 4th, which is, that is day after tomorrow. This is Thursday night, so by the time you see it, it might be one day away. All right, so now let's look at Mars transiting Gemini, May 6th through June 22nd. So you can see there's a lot of Mars energy happening here. So Mars is getting a lot of face time in all of this stuff. So, Mars is about action. Mars is about taking action and about accomplishing things. So May might be the month to get things done. If I look at it myself, as I realize it, I've given myself up until the 6th to sort of just kind of fart around, and then come May 6th, I'm all about my move to Australia. So this aligns really well with this. You may have the same experience as well. So Mars is transiting Gemini May 6th through June 22nd. So we've already talked about what Mars is. We've already talked about what Gemini is. We talked about what it was like to have Mercury in Aries. So we're going to have a very similar kind of scenario, except sort of backwards, because now instead of Mercury being shined on by the light of Mars, we got the opposite. We've got Mars who's getting the power of Gemini shown on him, which is Mercury. So Mercury is shining his light through the filter of Gemini onto Mars. What does that do? That makes Mars, the planet of action, intellectual, to communicate. So the same kind of thing. So you see what I mean? One is like, which shirt is the undershirt and which is the jacket. And in this case, they're switching. So I won't get too deep in that because you can probably figure out what that means. Is that Mars is going to, your action is going to have this experience of wanting to get very practical, and those ideas that I had, I want to make those ideas happen. This is what happens when Mars is in Gemini. Okay, so the other thing that's going to be happening is that Mars is going to be entering the sign where Rahu is sitting. So directly opposite Ketu and Saturn in Sagittarius, we have Rahu, which is the north node. Ketu is the south node of the moon. Rahu is the north node. If Ketu takes you out of this physical illusion, guess what Rahu does? The opposite. Rahu dives you straight into the illusion. Rahu is all about the illusion, the money, the stuff, the status, all of that. So here we have Mars, who is the general, who is the policeman, who is the warrior. And Mars, in his highest awareness, is the protector. He goes out and fights enemies. He ruthlessly destroys enemies. He kills them. He stomps on them to protect people back home. He takes orders. He's very disciplined. Rahu, total opposite. If Mars is the policeman, Rahu is the criminal. So what happens when you put these two together? It can be extremely explosive. So what tends to happen is that you get the intense aspects of both planets working together. You've got Mars, who is ruthless and will accomplish his goal. The thing about Mars is an attack dog. And you tell the attack dog, kill, and then you let him off the leash. You can't stop him. Once you've given him that command, he is going to kill. That's it. It's over. So you've got Rahu. Rahu is the aspect of you that doesn't follow any rules. So what happens when you have an attack dog who doesn't follow any rules? It can be very intense. So this means that in Gemini, which again is the intellect. So you've got this intellect that's trying to figure things out, practically communicating the truth as well as practically figuring out how to make things happen. You've got Mars, the planet of action, who wants to go and accomplish things. And then you've got Rahu, which is the iconoclast. So here's the difference between Mars and Rahu left by themselves. Mars follows orders, is disciplined, fully, completely committed to one pointed goal. And Rahu is all about breaking all of the traditions, breaking all of the taboos, and not taking orders. He's gonna innovate. So when Rahu is in his highest awareness, he is innovation. Technology is Rahu. What you're watching right now, you're watching a video on air, through nothing. It's not even through a channel. It's just you're watching it on your computer. This is Rahu. Rahu's breaking all the rules. He broke all the rules with the internet, with YouTube, with all of technology. When Mars wants to go conquer something, he takes his army with him and he marches. He'll march for hundreds and hundreds of miles, and he wants to look his enemy square in the eye and take him down. Rahu says, screw that. That is way too much work. That takes far too long. I'm just simply going to invent a smart bomb. And he sits in his underwear in his apartment, and he just simply pushes, actually not his apartment, in his huge palace. He sits in his huge palace and he just simply pushes the button. Didn't cost him anything. This is Rahu. He just wants to figure it out. So you can see, you put these two things together, you have an intense, committed desire to have your way and to communicate. So we'll see. This makes me an even more brash communicator than I've been up till now. You'll know why. Okay? So that's what's going to be happening there with Rahu and Mars in Gemini. Okay, so then we're going to have Venus. Venus is going to be transiting Aries. So we've got a lot of stuff going on in Aries from May 10th to June 3rd. All right, so Venus in Aries. Venus, left to herself, is the goddess of love, the goddess of fertility, the goddess of wine and music. Venus says, let us recline on the silk couch and let us drink champagne and eat bonbons and have wonderful sensual experiences sexually and personally. Let's hang out with our friends. Venus is a friend maker. Venus wants friends. Venus is an arbitrator. Venus wants let's put our differences aside and have an orgy and eat and listen to good music. So Venus is transiting the sign of Aries. Aries is what we talked about already, is the light of Mars action shining down on Venus, who wants to just relax and enjoy. So this tends to heat her up a little bit. This can be good if she happens to be your date that night, because you're guaranteed some action. Because what happens is Venus wants to take action on what Venus likes, right? Indulging in pleasurable things. So you can fill in the blanks about that. So this is a powerful switch moving from Pisces to, anytime you have a planet moving from Pisces to Aries, it's a huge switch because it's moving from deepest internal water sign of Pisces to the fullest external expression of action and fire, which is Aries. So anytime this happens, you have a transformative effect. So this will bring a transformative effect. You could see an increased desire in terms of things associated with Venus and, art, music, whatever it is, not just indulging in food and orgies, but it could be anything associated with that as well. Now, bear in mind, again, this is kind of meaningless unless you know where your Venus is in your chart, because you want to see, where is Venus in your chart? And what planets do you have in Aries that these planets are moving over and shining down and creating an experience for? Okay. Moving on, let's go to Saturn. Saturn is going to transit Taurus May 15th. So, what happens when you have Sun in Taurus? What is Sun? Sun is your internal personality. So, Western astrology wants to always talk about the sun sign. Your sign is that's your sun sign. It's not really your external personality. It's your internal personality. Your internal personality is your soul. So it has to do with your identity. Now, the sun is the king or the queen. The sun rules everything, just like the sun rules everything in our solar system. So the sun's main focus is eternal spiritual identity. The lesson of the identity, which is actually an illusion, but it's the identity as it transits through multiple lifetimes into infinity. So what happens when you take this infinitely powerful light of the soul and you try and smash it down into limited physical reality? The sun gets uncomfortable. And here you have the sun being smashed into Taurus. What is Taurus? Taurus is the earthly Venus sign. So Taurus is the sign of real estate, money, clothes, land, children, fertility. It's like the earth mother. It's the exact opposite of the sun in one way, because the essence of the sun is pure divine spirituality, celestial spirituality. And Taurus is the earth. It's the mother. The name of the goddess is Maya. What does Maya mean? Maya means illusion. So this means that here you have the sun, whose essence is to be the true spiritual essence of the universe, being smashed into the illusion of limited physical reality. So here what ends up happening is that the ego starts to seek physical pleasure. It seeks to connect and indulge in physical things. Nothing wrong with that, because as it so happens, the whole point of becoming incarnated is for the soul to do just that. The soul, listen, your soul comes here for an adventure. You've watched, what is that, Westworld, right? Especially the latest Westworld. People go there for an adventure. They go there to get shot at by the bad guy. They go there to beat up the bad guy. They go there to, chase and be chased by Indians and, meet the cute girl at the bar, and they know it's just a game. It's just there for fun. But they want to experience all the hardships and the adventure of the Wild West. Your soul is exactly like that. Your soul comes into this body and to experience a virtual reality just like a Westworld. The problem is when you take it too seriously. When you take the challenges too seriously and you forget that you're in a game. That's like in Westworld when the safety is taken off the robots and the robots can start shooting and killing humans. So if you want to keep the robots from shooting and killing, you don't take yourself too seriously. That's the lesson here. But here you have an opportunity. Sun, the ego, the soul wants to experience physical indulgence, and again, depending on where Taurus is in your chart and what planets are there, will determine exactly what that experience will be like for you. Okay, so moving on, we have Mercury transiting Taurus May 18th through June 1st. So Mercury again is the intellect. So Mercury in Taurus, that's a pretty good setup because Mercury wants to figure out practically what's happening here in this world, right? So the problem here is that we've got the sun in there as well. So this sets up some conflict. The truth is that the sun and Mercury together can create genius and brilliance, especially artistic, using the intellectual part of your artistic self. So the sun empowers that. Now, sometimes the sun will eclipse the power of a planet, but Mercury is a planet that is always close to the sun anyway. So Mercury is always being inflamed by the heat and the fire of the sun. So this can be an interesting time for the intellect and the soul to work together to practically connect to your physical indulgent reality. Okay, so you may see a lot of intense communication here at this point, because the sun makes Mercury even more intense when it wants to communicate. So, all right, the way to overcome any of that, if it gets too much, is to use the earth, because we've got Taurus, the sign of Taurus working for us, so you can use that power of earth to ground. This is one of the things that Taurus does as well. It is a very grounding sign. So depending on the combination here, you can use that to your benefit. All right, so we have a full moon May 18th. So we've got an intense situation here because the full moon is going to be in the sign of Scorpio. The sign of Scorpio, and I believe we have retrograde Jupiter in there as well. We do. We've got retrograde Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio already, and here the full moon comes in. So the moon and Jupiter are in love with each other. That is absolute, total soulmate heaven. What is the moon? The moon is your emotions. The moon is the opposite of Mercury. Mercury wants to find limitations and divisions and separate. The moon wants to include everybody. The moon is the embracing arms of the mother. The moon is your emotions. The moon is your ability to go and to dream. The moon is dreams. So you have this connected to Jupiter. Jupiter is the priest. Jupiter is the most, if we're talking about power, the two most important planets are Sun and Jupiter. So here we have Jupiter, who is the spiritual sun of our universe, if that makes any sense, the priest. And the priest and the king, the sun is the king. So it's, we've got the sun, and then we've got Jupiter, and then we've got Mars, who's the general. So you see, when it comes to that, the priest almost has as much, sometimes can have more power than the king, because the priest is the one who says, let's talk about what the spiritual significance. And king, I recommend that you do this for the benefit of your... So sometimes Jupiter can be that powerful. And here we have moon coming in. So this is a love affair between deep feelings and deep wisdom, but it's in the sign of Scorpio. And what is Scorpio? Scorpio is the internal water sign of Mars. This is intensity, deep inward intensity. Scorpio has a stinger. So you got to be careful with Scorpio women, my male friends. because she's going to be very passionate and she's going to be a lot of fun on a date, but she's also going to want to get her hook in you. And you got to be aware, because if you do anything to make her feel like you have betrayed her trust me, that stinger is going to come out. And when she decides to say something, it's going to hurt. This is Scorpio. It's intense. Now you've got the moon in there and you've got Jupiter in there. What does this make? This makes for an intense, deep, spiritual experience. So this can also create a lot of, the full moon on May 18th. If you guys want to have a romantic, intense evening, this is the day, the day to do it, because this is going to mean, sometimes when you've got people with moon in Scorpio, you have somebody who, when they meet somebody for the first time, like if they go on a date with somebody on the first date and they decide that they like you, they're going to want to have sex with you that night. Not because they're, just looking for cheap thrills. It's because that's how they can to feel you, to experience you. And they want to get to know you. They want to get to know you deeply. They want to go past all of the words and they want to get right into just connecting energetically. It's a very powerful energetic sign. If you want to do some kind of a ritual, this is the time to do it. If you want to, if you're into black magic, this would be a powerful time to do it. Jupiter in there is going to want to make you do something more helpful to the world and more spiritual. But here we've got deep, dark, intense spirituality, all three of these put together. So, all right. So there's that. All right. So now we're going to talk about, no, we're not going to talk about that because that barely happens. That's not really a big deal. Okay. So that's it. Now, as I said before, this is just a general monthly, look at what's going to be happening astrologically. The truth is that, anytime that you go online and you have what is going to happen for such and such, and, it's far too general. So this is just some general influences to really understand how it affects you. You need to know, where your Mars is placed. You need to know where your Aries is and where your Scorpio is, and what planets, where they are. What planets are in your Aries? What planets are in your Scorpio? What planets are aspecting? Because this is going to really tell you what you can experience. Because what you're going to experience through these planetary transits is going to be different than what I'm going to experience. But if you know what you're looking at, you can get a really good idea. So to understand that, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. And that's it for me. Again, subscribe, hit the bell button. If you want me to keep doing these astrology videos and do astrology predictions and those kinds of things on a monthly basis, I'm happy to do it if it becomes something popular and it brings in more views. Especially if it brings in more astrology clients, I'm happy to keep doing that. So, and by the way, we do have some new astrologers working for me. These are people that I've trained. If you're interested in learning my specific niche of Vedic astrology, which has been proven to be very powerful and liberating for people, I give people specific mantras based on their specific chart. I tell you which planets are working specifically for you. Mars is going to do something for me. He's going to do something different for you. Maybe you need to focus on the moon instead of Mars. Maybe you do need to focus on Saturn, or no, you need to focus on Jupiter. I help you understand exactly which planets are working with your three minds, your conscious, your subconscious, and your unconscious. And I give you practical tools that you can use for the rest of your life, not just what's going to help you through the month of May, but through your entire life. And we've got some new astrologers who are giving out some specials. So if you want to save yourself some money, I would do that now before they realize they can charge more. To do that, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. I recommend you go to all the links. I put them up here for a reason. Go to all of them and see what we got available, all the resources that are available for you. That's it for me, my friends. I will talk to you again very soon.